Welcome back to the Practically Pastoring Podcast. My name is Frank, and I am glad that you are here. Currently, I am traveling from Wisconsin down to sunny Florida. I'm recording this before that, but in the real life, I will be traveling down to Florida. I may be in Nashville on this day already, but I'm wherever I am in the United States. Jeff, you're up in Baltimore, Maryland.
I might be in Florida, but yes.
Okay, great. Down in Sumter, South Carolina, we got Delmar Pete, who is literally on dial-up internet. And then we have, in the Morning After Ministry studios, we have Andrew Larson.
Greetings, salutations.
And Timothy Miller.
Hey.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Del just faxed me, said he was almost on.
He just faxed you. Uh-oh, it slowed down his Wi-Fi even further because he's using the same phone line.
Nobody call him.
He told me to beep him when we start.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Hey,
from the car
there
phone.
He is.
He's here from the car phone. What's up, Del?
He has his T-Mobile sidekick. He's using the FaceTime on that. All right. Hey, we got two questions. Before we talk about the questions, Practically Pastoring Conference, I want to see you there. I'm actively on my way driving to Florida to go to the Practically Pastoring Conference. February 17th to the 19th. We hope to see you there. The most affordable conference you could ever go to. It's going to be a great time. Go to practicallypastoringconference.com. All right, guys. Very important question. We got pastors people who go into ministry, people who like kind of revisit this conversation every year. What do you do with insurance? Like how, like some churches, like maybe a larger church, they have like an actual insurance package that you can choose from and things like that. Andrew, when you were at the super large church in Texas, did the church have like insurance packages that you can choose from?
Full on HR plan. You know, they sit you down with the folder. It was about as in depth as my wife's public school insurance. You know, it was like you sit down with the rep. There are these 3 plans you can choose from. Here's the one that is just you. This is for you and your spouse and your kids. It's going to cost more. And this one, we can shoot you right now and take care of it completely. So like they would sit you down with the HR person. Anytime there's a church HR person, you know the insurance is going to be a bit robust, but also that your spouse won't be covered.
I'm interested to hear what you guys either currently in your church or what you've experienced, and maybe like help a person who's like, hey, I'm looking for a job, or I'm currently at a church and there's no like insurance is not a part of the benefits package. How should I engage that conversation?
That's my story.
Okay, Delmar, tell us why your church is not caring for you.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, they pay me more money. So sure. I will say they part of the way our church negotiated was my last church, similar to Andrew. Hey, we're going to give you all this stuff. It was covering everybody. At my current church, they're like, listen, we don't per se, because we're non-denom. So the other one was with Guidestone, who is Southern Baptist affiliated. So now we're non-denom, so we don't have the luxury of that. So they said, what we're going to do is we're actually going to give you more money, so that way you can afford to get it if you need it. Now, what that did for me, and I know some people may have issues with it, and part of me has an issue with it and part of me doesn't. But if your employer does not offer insurance, that makes you qualified to get the at-large U.S. insurance, the public insurance. So right now, our family is young, healthy, don't have any special needs, special like bills or whatnot. So we have an agent. They actually assign so a friend of our family. My parents are on it too, and literally my insurance comes as the form of a tax rebate every month. So we don't pay anything for our insurance. Our whole family is covered. And depending on how many children you have, you get that much more money allotted toward your family. So our insurance is literally nothing. And so I was able to, they gave me more money, but we were able to kind of find this other thing out. And I've been on it. This is my 3rd year now. So far, we go get our Medicare medication if we need to, just like anybody else. We did look at Medi-Share. I think one of you guys has Medi-Share. And Medi-Share is actually really good. There's some weird legalisms, at least with the one I looked at, like our Medicare, you had to sign a paper saying you never drank, which I don't, but still that's a little independent, fundamentally Baptist to me. And when I looked at the premiums for Medi-Share, It was about the same as insurance. And the biggest reason we didn't go with Medi-Share here, because I'm not opposed to it, is because none of the pediatric doctors in my area take Medi-Share. And what they told me is, you go to your appointment first, then you bring us the bill, and we'll tell you how much of that we think we'll pay, considering how much it is at other places that we do cover. So I'm like, so I can go in here and rack up a $5,000 bill and might have to pay all of it. I'll just go with the free thing, and I'll save that extra money each month. So if we have an extenuating circumstance come up, I've got basically a HSA in my own bank account of my own money.
Yeah, our denomination provides insurance, and it is ridiculous. My first year here at the church, when I got hired, I had been on denominational insurance at my previous church. And so it was just assumed, hey, your family's going to do this. And it was ridiculous. This is 2017. I think the insurance for my entire family was like $16,800 a year for my family of 6. And so after that, it was, since my employer does not provide insurance, the denomination provides something we can buy into. I was able to buy into Obamacare. And so Florida has a program called Florida Kid Care, which is the best insurance ever. And it's available to anybody in the state of Florida with it's whether you're an entrepreneur or whatever. I think it maxes out at $300 per family, but 80% of families pay under $20 a month for their Florida Kid Care. And due to the beautiful way that pastors are paid, my housing allowance negates a vast majority of my income. So the state looks at us and says, hey, you should get really, really cheap insurance for your kids. And I do have some kids with some special needs with occupational therapy and some prescriptions that are controlled substances. And it covers all of that. So it is spectacular for my kids. My wife is a public school teacher, and so she gets good insurance from the public school system. And so then it was just me. And so for a while I did the Medi-Share thing, which, let's be real, the Medi-Share plan is don't get sick. Don't get sick. And if you do, you'll only have to pay for parts of it, but really just don't get sick. And after a couple of years of not going to a doctor at all, I switched to Obamacare. And it has been spectacular for me. I think it's like $70 a month just for me. And it's a Blue Cross Blue Shield plan that's accepted everywhere. The most important part of it is that my Propecia, to offset male pattern baldness, that I was paying $25 a month for through HIMS, is now, I'm sorry, for Keeps, not HIMS, through Keeps, is now completely covered by my insurance company. Instead of paying $25 a month, I'm paying $3 a month for this luscious, lovely hair. And that's what I do for my insurance.
What about what you get from HIMS?
I don't get anything from HIMS, Jeff.
Oh, right,
It's
right.
Keeps.
Gotcha.
Keeps.
Gotcha.
But again, after going through what I've been through, it might be an awkward conversation with the doctor at some point, but why would I ever pay the non-prescription price when I'm getting everything for $3? Come on. That's a great deal.
Andrew and I are in the same denomination, so I have access to the same insurance package that he's talking about through the denomination.
And it's way more
Andy,
expensive now.
So I actually looked into it for this year. So I have my family of 7, and it was about $2,500 a month, which, well,
it's a lot of dollars.
That's more than my mortgage by about $800. So
ridiculous.
The insurance plan is written for a 63-year-old pastor on the verge of a stroke. It is not written for us.
So what we did a few years ago
in the
at
Morning
Lakeview,
After Ministry show, we talked about a wonderful resource that the Covenant provides this morning. And now,
Yes,
hey,
this one,
Bethany
not so
Benefits, step your game up.
Not so much. It's the Cadillac package. Everything's covered, but you're paying for it all in advance for sure. So what we did at Lakeview a few years ago, which was really on my recommendation, was to take what it would cost to get Bethany Benefits and build that into the pastor's compensation plan. So I'm given an allotment. It's not my salary. It's on top of my salary that I can use. Frank's going to get the same thing that we can use to then go out and choose whatever insurance plan we would like. The Miller family, personally, we, as Andrew already said, thanks to that beautiful housing allowance that us pastors get, doesn't look like I make a lot of money, and I have a whole lot of kids. So, all of my kids are $0 a month. Steph and I have been $0 a month for the last few years, up until August, when we got a letter saying that Steph and I are no longer $0 a month. However, we do still have the medically needy program through the state of Florida, which basically means if I have to go to the ER and it's over $700, it's all covered. So if there's anything catastrophic and I'm in the hospital for a couple of days, like when I had COVID a few years ago, my
Do you remember
doctor's bill
when
was,
you got COVID? That was fun.
Yeah.
Remember
I was
when
4 days in the hospital,
and I looked up and saw you in the hospital window and made a joke, and then realized you actually were really sick.
I was really
Do you remember
sick.
when I was afraid you were going to die and I was going to have to steal your phone so that your wife didn't say all the mean things I said to you about you getting COVID?
Oh my gosh. I was they were having the ventilator conversation in the other room about me, and I was overhearing it, and it was absolutely freaking me out. The bill that I got
but
from
you
that
couldn't
was
yell because you couldn't breathe.
Exactly, because my oxygen levels were not increasing, they were just
And
getting
all
worse.
you could hear was you making fun of me for getting vaccinated a month before.
Exactly.
You asked me if it came
Exactly.
with a Biden Harris sticker, my vaccination.
Wow.
Long time ago. Needless to say, that medical bill was $16,000, and we paid $0 thanks to the the government. And what we do have as a backup is Christian Medishare, and we have that because Steph's OB won't just take Medicaid. They need to see that you have something else before they'll take Medicaid. So we have Christian Medishare as a backup. And like Andrew said, the plan is don't get sick on Christian Medishare. It doesn't really do a whole lot. It's not that expensive for just two people. Obviously, it's far cheaper than going with the denominational package that was offered to me. So we do that. The kids are covered. I think it's a sweet perk that we do offer our full-time employees at Lakeview, where, hey, this isn't just we're going to pay you more. We're already going to pay you more, but on top of that, you're going to get additional dollars that's just for medical, dental, vision, life insurance, as well as death and disability insurance. We have a separate line item for all of those things for our pastors and full-time staff at Lakeview. So little pastors / staff perk for the full-timers at Lakeview.
So my wife and I have basically Obamacare, and Maryland has its own marketplace for that, and it's about $190 a month for the two of us. We have up here we have Kaiser Permanente, so we have that, and we have a location like a mile from our house or less, not even a mile. It's like a quarter of a mile. It's really close. And what's cool about it is it has a urgent care, a pharmacy, and your primary care doctors are all in one building. So really convenient. If we need to go to the pharmacy, it's open 24 hours a day. You can walk in, get over the counter stuff, but also your prescription stuff. And then for my kids, because they are adopted from foster care, they all have Medicaid. So they're all covered. And so it's just for Amy and I that we have to find that. And so the church does not pay for that, but it was considered in part of my salary. So that's what we have.
I wanted to ask those of you who are using the government insurance, do you find that your insurance covers the stuff you need covered? Because there's times like this year we thought we got a better plan, and none of my wife's therapy is covered, and it was covered the year before, it was covered the last 3 years, and it's just it's like playing whack-a-mole of okay, I'll cover this stuff this year, and then if we try to do a different plan next year, it didn't get covered. Have you guys figured out a good plan to cover everything that you need, or are you guys just we'll just get what we get?
I just want to go back
really
before I answer
fortunate.
this question. I want to go back and say that I literally have no idea what my insurance covers or doesn't, because my wife does that. So I was texting her while we were on and asking her, hey, what insurance do we have? So my advice to you young ministry guys who are like me and a little more creative and scatterbrained is find you a good wife. Step one to take care of that for you. And and then you'll be fine. So that's what I know about insurance, which is absolutely nothing.
My insurance plan lets me look up what is covered and what isn't. So you put in the name of the medication, you put in whatever the billing code is, and it'll tell you if it's covered. And like I said, when we were on the denominations insurance, which was big and robust and all that stuff, we were having copays of hundreds of dollars a month for occupational therapy and things like that for my kids. And under the Florida Kid Care, we pay $0 for occupational therapy and the different services that my kids receive. So whether we are just in the sweet spot or we've just been blessed, I couldn't answer it for you, but the Florida Blue plan for me specifically tells me if something is covered, what percentage of that thing is covered or not. So I would recommend that.
I'll say
Frank,
something about.
I'll help you Google when you get down here.
Yeah, the Obamacare thing, because that's kind of what we're on. I would advise you, if possible, go through an agent. And the reason I say that is, number one, they're free. Number two, if you pick the wrong package that gives you way more coverage, when your taxes come up, you may find that you owe the government a good bit of money because they might be paying a lot more for your insurance a month because you accidentally put in there that you make a certain amount that you don't. And if you know with pastor money, it's different than other money as far as what you actually claim as money. So I would super encourage you to talk to I talked to my CPA and I talked to through an agent to make sure that when all the books are done, it balanced out so I'm not owing.
But if you're a big fan of actually getting something back in the form of a tax refund or a tax return, if you go with the $0 a month Obamacare, it will scrub that from your refund. So it's basically you're paying for it. You don't get to see that money later. And we're big fans of that tax refund every year. It's a huge part of our annual budget.
Make sure you get it in the right bracket.
Yep.
Any recommendations you would give to a pastor who's being interviewed for a church and the conversations of insurance, especially like when you're like the guy from last week who's like just finished Bible college, they don't know these conversations. They're not maybe even like in a place like think about insurance because they may still be on their parents' insurance because they're under 25. Like what kind of things you would bring up in an interview to talk about whether you want to talk about benefits more broadly or just specifically insurance?
I would just this is in the salary conversation as well. What you do not want to do is go into that conversation having the attitude of like being fearful of like, man, I really hope I get this job and I'll just kind of take whatever they'll give me, and because it's my first time. No, yes, be humble, but at the same time, especially if you have a family or a wife, like you need to go in there prepared to not be. I'm not saying be hardball negotiator, but you need to, know that you're valuable and that church wants you. They're interviewing you because they want you. They have a need for you in their position. So ask the questions about insurance. Ask the questions about salary. Do not just think, well, I don't want to, I don't want to ask. It's kind of awkward about money. No, you're in an interview. That's the time to have the conversation about money, about insurance. And so I would just say like, be a little more bold than you maybe are comfortable being and ask those hard questions of the senior pastor. I will just give you my experience. I went on I was being called for, a youth pastor job, and I went for the candidating weekend, and I got there on Thursday. I stayed until Monday. We didn't have any conversations about money. And on Monday night, I had dinner at the senior pastor's house before we were flying out Tuesday morning. And he literally like slid a piece of paper across the table to me and was like, well, anyway, here's this. And I was not knowledgeable or brave enough to know. I should have asked that question like in the interview the day I landed and we talked to the elders and stuff. Because when I opened that piece of paper, it was way different than what I had thought in my mind I needed to make this work. And so that was a big disappointment. It wasted a lot of their time. They flew me from Florida to Montana and wasted my time in terms of like being there for a week when I really didn't need to be. And so I would just say like, don't think, well, I need the job and who am I? No, you got to ask. They want you there. They're interviewing you because they have a need for you. So ask those questions. Don't hold back and think, well, we'll deal with it later because then it'll be too late. Frank, you got anything you want to ask Tim?
I think I asked him all my questions already. I just heard some more about it.
All right, good. We definitely went through this.
Listen, it's expensive to have coverage. It's more expensive to lose the staff member because they don't have the coverage. So it's a awkward conversation to have, but we've all got friends in ministry who thought they had good insurance, and then, we all spent time in youth ministry. Youth pastors get hurt doing stupid stuff. You need stupid stuff insurance if you've got a stupid stuff job. And so many churches think of it as an add-on or a tack-on after thing that it makes a huge difference. And I know people that have been forever soured to ministry because of a medical situation that they thought the church was going to help them take care of that they didn't. So ask the questions. Better to have an awkward 5-minute conversation than to have a decade's worth of resentment because you didn't.
Let's be honest here. A lot of people we're talking to are men, and men have this feeling that you have to be the provider for the family. And yes, like, provide for your family. But like Dell talked about this in the last episode about how are you called to this? Do you feel like you're called to ministry? And one thing that like you could do is, maybe if you're called to ministry and you're a pastor, your church might not have those benefits, but your wife's job has those benefits. And if your wife is working full time and she gets health insurance and she gets whatever benefits, like that might be the thing that you could do in this season while you're in a place where maybe your church doesn't offer benefits. Maybe you're trying to get the experience so you can be at a church that offers benefits, whatever that looks like. So like, be creative. And I think this is like what we're saying is everyone here is being creative with their insurance and what they're trying to do, because it's not like the business world where they have like clear-cut HR and benefits and things like that. All right. So Andrew had to run, but I have one more question for you guys. This is coming from our Download Youth Ministry friends in the Facebook group. This gentleman said this: pray for me. I just became pastor at my home church. The current youth leader has left and taken all the youth with them to start their own thing. We will be starting from scratch. I'm the only staff, so it's another ministry that I'll be leading. How would you encourage this person?
My first question would be why? Why do you feel like you have to lead this ministry? Do you have, I mean, if you've got like a bunch of teenagers that are like, hey, we want a youth group, then okay, maybe let's have a conversation. But from what you said, you don't have any youth left. So that means you don't have a need for a youth group. And my opinion is, like, you don't have to, everything that's a ministry within the church doesn't have to be a ministry of the church. Meaning it doesn't have to be like an officially sanctioned ministry. If you've got 3 or 4 adults who have a heart for reaching teens, and you've got a few teens in your church, and it's not really going to work to put on a program for them, you know what? Get those adults background checked, do the right thing, but like just let them go out to dinner a few times a month with the teens, or have them take them to the movies, or have them be involved in their schoolwork, mentoring, tutoring them, that kind of thing. It is nothing wrong with just building kind of like not officially sanctioned relationships in your church that then could potentially blossom into something that becomes a program. But I don't think you have to feel this need. It sounds like you have a presupposition or an assumption that you have to have youth ministry at your church in order to reach the community. And that's just not true. You don't have to.
Jeff, I mean, that's a true statement. However, we all know that like certain churches have expectations of certain ministries.
Yeah. I'm guessing there's people in this church who are like, oh, our whole youth group just left. What are you going to do?
Right.
Well, this is a great time to execute some leadership, and maybe not necessarily being the new youth guy. You know, like when I came into the church I'm currently at, I'll say the student ministry was almost gone because they had came out of COVID, and then the youth pastor left right on the heels of it. So there was hardly anyone. So what the church decided and the elders is, hey, got us here doesn't get us there. So we're transforming our student ministry to a family ministry. Like there's no way to say you have to build it back the way that worked 30 years ago. Maybe this is your opportunity to build forward minded. That would be the questions I would be toying around with right now. Not, oh, how can I rebuild a student ministry? Not to say you shouldn't have a place for teenagers to hang out. We definitely do. But to say, hey, maybe there's a way we can do this that's more holistic to the church we have now, which may only have 2 teenagers, than the church that we used to be.
Well, and if you've got a bunch of kids in your church, I would just focus on children's ministry, and youth group is 5 to 10 years away.
That's true as well.
Fine, you know,
if you just stepped in as pastor, I'm assuming you mean your lead pastor because you said you're the only staff member. There's a lot of things in front of you right now. I know that weight well. I remember it well. 2019, I stepped in as lead pastor of Lakeview, and I know for me, the immediate task ahead of me, which probably would need to be for you as well, was to establish a set of biblical leaders, elders, deacon, whatever you call them at your church. I mean, for us, they're elders. It was just to establish a biblical set of elders around you. So it's not just you. Yes, you might be the vocational guy. You might be the one that's getting paid, but you need other pastors around you who are going to be able to come alongside you and help you. And one thing the elders were so good at with me in my early months was helping me identify some low-hanging fruit that we could see and see, like, this is identifiable. This is a clear win for us. This is a need that we have. And if youth ministry is that thing, okay, great. If not, that's okay. I'll also speak from experience, someone who lost their youth pastor. And in 2023, our youth leader and his wife, who was our worship director, stepped down at the same time. So we had a massive gaping hole in two areas of ministry. And like you, I did feel that pressure. Thankfully, the youth leader did not take the students and start something else, but I did step into student ministry for a season. It lasted about 9 months. It was difficult. It was also very rewarding because I had some of my own kids in student ministry with me. So that was fun, but it was a very difficult season. So I kind of feel for you. If you really are just starting out, I don't want you to get so overwhelmed and consumed thinking this has to be student ministry right now. Obviously, if that's the one thing you and your leadership team identifies, yeah, go at it. And if you want to step into that role and do help out in there, that's okay. But I don't want you to feel that pressure of it has to be this thing right now, when there might be a few other areas. For us at Lakeview, honestly, First Impressions was a very low-hanging fruit. We weren't doing a good job of welcoming new people, and we were seeing new people, and we were a pretty tiny church. There was no excuse not to be really good at welcoming those people. So we established a First Impressions team that's now become the model serve team at Lakeview because of the way they've blossomed and developed and grown. And all of our other ministries kind of base what they do now on how our First Impressions team got started. So you've got options, but first, establish a team around you so you're not doing this alone. If you need some help, hey, Practically Pastoring Conference is coming up, buddy. Please don't do this alone. We want to be there with you. We could talk with you through this in person. If you haven't already signed up, we'd love to see you there.
Might be a guy
Dude,
you can hire as a youth pastor too.
You straight up just Ben Shapiro'd that right there. You're like talking, and then you're like, and by the way, there's a conference. No, now while you were speaking, man, my mind was in the same place. That's a lot to tear into. And if you're in the DYM group, chances are you may have used to been a youth pastor. So I know for me, if I was the lead pastor in a church and then the youth pastor left, it'd be really tempting me to go and dump everything I already know, and that would consume me. And then I would not do my role that I'm currently called to as well. So be careful of that forbidden fruit that may be in front of you. Instead, another option that may be helpful, and I did this at my first church I was at when I knew I was going to be leaving. I identified a person in the church who just obviously has a heart and has that for student ministry. And I said, how about this? Let's spend time together. Come with me once a week. Let's sit down. Let's talk about how to read the Bible, how to teach. And I mentored this guy so that way when the students came, or in my example, when I left, they actually were resourced already. And the resource wasn't me. It was a product of the discipleship in my life, which is compounding when you make disciples instead of just doing it.
Before we did this podcast, I had a podcast called 15 Minutes with Frank. The original podcast was called...
What a great logo that had, man.
Yeah, 15 Minutes with Frank had a fantastic logo. Thanks to Jeff. But one thing I often said in that podcast was there's no rules in student ministry. Any rules that we have, we've created. And I think for some of those rules we've created because of good practices, right? Like we hear about a great student ministry in California and they're thriving. And so we mimic them. And then we've like kind of created these rules of this is what student ministry should be like and whatever. And there isn't any rules. Like this isn't like the proper church, like on a Sunday morning, there are rules, like, and those rules I think should be governed by our biblical understanding of scripture. But the youth ministry is not in the Bible. Like this is essentially a microcosm of a specific ministry within your church. So therefore, the same category, your ministry of women who gather together to knit and talk about their families is the same category as the student ministry. That might not feel good, especially as a former youth pastor. It should get more priority. I understand that, but at the end of the day, there are no rules when it comes to student ministry. So therefore, this is your opportunity to think very pragmatic and creative about this. And so I would say, at minimum, if Dell's right that you're in the DYM group, which means you probably are a former youth pastor, I would say figure out right now who are the leaders that are maybe still in the student ministry and they're devastated because they don't have students anymore, to like say, hey, here's what we're going to do. I want you all to work with me on creating what the future of the student ministry looks like. And if what that looks like in the future right now is maybe once a month, we're gathering with whatever students we can find here, and we're going to do a very special night for them once a month, we do that. Maybe this looks like we partner with another small church in the area and do a combined youth ministry so we have some critical mass, and then over time we separate. And maybe what this looks like is simply you going to like something like Orange, and Orange gives you a full package of video teaching, so you don't have to physically teach a message every single week, and like all the other things. So that way you have some sort of curriculum, or you don't. Or maybe the youth group can literally be just like a small group of your church that discusses the sermons that they heard on Sunday morning. What I'm saying is like you have full, like, I want you to unlock yourself from what you think student ministry has to be like, and allow yourself for this season that you're in to say, what can this be to, at minimum, love and serve the people God has given you. And at the end of the day, that's what you're called to do in this youth group, is to love and serve the students and their families in a way that gives them care and grows in their discipleship. And that can be done in more creative ways than typically 2 hours on a Wednesday night with a full band and a message and some crazy games. This could look like bringing back a Sunday school model. This could look like a once a month gathering. There's a bunch of different ways to talk about this. I think Tim is right. I think you're in a unique situation where you need to be surrounded by other people. And if you don't have a network right now, because you're the only staff person at your church, if you don't have a group of other pastors in your area that you can connect with to talk about this in person, find that. But at minimum, dude, come over to Practically Pastoring. We would love for you to kind of get in our network and be able to hear you're already in the DYM group. That's great. And if you can, I'm gonna try to see if I can post this in the DYM group. It might get blocked or deleted. But if the person who wrote this post hears this podcast, you have a free ticket to the conference. All right, a free ticket to the Practically Pastoring conference. You just have to get there. I might be able to get you a place to stay. Okay. If you can get to Florida in February, you have a free ticket to the conference, and we will specifically work with you, everyone who's attending, to help you figure out what to do with your youth ministry. Now that's like 4 or 5 months from now. So you might have to do some decisions ahead of time, but maybe in February we can get like an update of like where you are with your youth ministry, and we can help you troubleshoot live what to do from there. All right.
Can I add one thing too? Because you said essentially what I was trying to say, but you said it way more articulate than I did. So good job.
Sure.
But I think there's all this other aspect now of the frustration and probably hurt that this guy's feeling in his situation. And this is a totally different thing from the youth ministry part of this. This is, you need to guard your soul if you're this guy, and not start doing ministry from your new seat in leadership from a place of frustration and anger. And now that youth group is our enemy, and you got to let all that stuff go. And you got to just focus on your church. Those people left, and the temptation is for you to spend way too much time thinking, how can I get them back? And how can we go back to, there is no back. This is where you are now. The only way is forward. And you really have to guard your heart. You have to guard against bitterness. You have to guard against distrusting people in your current church because maybe they were associated with those people. And what are they saying about me? And they left because I became the pastor. And all of that stuff is just, frankly, our enemy trying to begin to sow seeds of division in your church. And you really have to guard against that. Your job now as the pastor, as the shepherd, is to guard the flock that you're among. And so you really have to watch your heart in that and make sure that you're not leading from a place of bitterness and anger in this situation. So I just wanted to add that because that's another big factor in this.
The person who wrote this question lives in Winter Haven, Florida. You're not far, bro.
Nice. You're not far. You can get there.
you can come to this conference if you want to just commute and like drive. What is it, like an hour back and forth, dude? You should come to this conference. I'm gonna
We'll buy you
personally
lunch,
message you. We have mutual friends. I'm looking at it right now. You're friends with Ronald Long. Ronald, I think, is planning on coming to the conference. Dude,
are we doxing this guy right now?
No, I haven't said anything else. I haven't said anything else. Anyways, with that being said, I hope this was helpful for you. And what Jeff said is so true, man. Like, oftentimes when people leave the church, we hang on to the pain and the anger a little too long, and by doing that, we overlook and miss the people who are at our church. There was
which I also want to say, you're not wrong for being hurt. Like that hurts. It does hurt. You're not wrong to feel pain. I'm not saying don't feel pain, shove it down, and I'm just saying watch your own soul that it doesn't begin to turn inwardly towards bitterness. You can feel the hurt, you can feel the pain. You got to talk through that with somebody. It's not wrong. It does feel like a family being ripped apart, because it is a family being ripped apart in a spiritual sense. So feel that pain, be present with it, but don't spend all your time leading from that pain and then treating people with mistrust who are still at your church, or talking bad about people who left. Like, that's just not going to end well at all. Sorry, Frank, go.
Especially with student ministry, where it's like that's already a very transition, like a very like temporary thing. It's like you don't have enough time to be worried about the kid who went to the other youth group. You need to focus on the kids at your youth group and the thousands of kids who are not connected to a youth group in your community. So anyways, I thought this was really good. Hey, Andrew, we miss you. I would have loved to hear how would you have answered this question, but thank you for your insights when it comes to insurance. With that being said, we'll see you next week. I'm Frank Gill.
I'm Jeff Simpson.
I'm Delmar Pete.
And I'm Timothy Miller.
Come to the conference. Bye.